I look towards making a show. It's showbiz, it's Broadway, it's tinsel, it's glamour town, it's Hollywood. You know, the lines, Auntie Mame, Ballet High is calling, boom, you know. Deliver the lick, man, the ace riff. And the ones who've heard it before turn to the people on their left and say, take this, take this, take this.
My feeling is that there's a tremendous amount of stuff there that you are afraid to show because you think you're going to turn off your audience that you have now. You don't want them to think somehow that you're that smart. It's like you've made it with this thing.
If there's ever been anybody who doesn't underestimate our audience, I got to say it's the Dime.
Who?
Diamond Dave, man. I'm going to tell you, because everybody cuts it down. They say, all these kids, all these teenagers, all these people got double-digit numbers, and it all starts with 1, 14, 12, 13, something like that. And I say, don't flatter yourself, baby, because people ain't no smarter. You get inside the building, and you make a show, and man, everybody becomes highest common denominator. And when you're dealing in large numbers of people, words that go koosh work better than words that go whoo. If you want to make sense, you use the kind of words that go poof so that it translates to 20,000 people. You can touch the person in the 93rd row. You can touch them with your words, almost physically you can touch them. And you have to know how to do that, whether it's exaggeration or using certain kinds of words. And words that go, they work, man. 93rd row, hears it, smells it, tastes the word. If you use words that go, they get about to the 14th row and peter out, and people say, what did he say? I didn't hear that. Ray, let's go get a hot dog.
How has Van Halen changed in 10 years?
Van Halen has changed in 10 years, over the last 10 years, in that we have become smoother.
In what way?
We seep right under your door. Man, you never even know what's coming. It's like, always you think you've seen it, okay, saw it this season, that was it, saw it, and it just kind of seeps under your door. And you don't even notice it until after the show, and people say, that was different. That was something new. That was something that I didn't expect.
What do you think about your voice?
My voice is like a whale. Started out as a real clean soprano. Brought tears in my grandma's eyes. That was before I had hair on my chest, etc., you know, like that. And it was real clean soprano. And then I started screaming in the shower, which was truly my base of operation. Where did my voice come from? The shower. And I would hear something off of records and then practice it in the shower. Those highs, wow! You know, those high screams, yeah, baby, you know, and all those low things and everything. And I can't stand to listen to it personally on tape or on radio or otherwise, because to me it's just like a bleating, you know, coming like that. But I sense the conviction therein because I know where it comes from.
Why do you dye your hair?
I like to look like, wow, because you're only young one time, and let's do it now. Let's have a good time now. Let's, while we have the energy and the wherewithal and the ideas and the, let's change and let's do this and let's do that. And hopefully I can keep that through the years.
But is that like, if you only have one life, let me live it as a blonde? I mean, seriously. That's what that
well, I am
like.
having more fun, honey. Oh, I get lonely a lot of times because people who perceive of what's happening with the band only perceive that. And that's their 5 minutes. And that's exists, but it is not the total. And if you look at the total, yeah, you know, you want to, okay, you want to fall in love. I mean, of course you want to fall in love. Where do little rock stars come from? It's like, okay, you do like that and you want to talk with somebody, but it's very difficult because people don't understand what kind of life you're truly leading out here. And me in particular, I got a heart. You gotta have heart, miles and miles and miles of heart. Come on, $5. What play was that?
Oh, damn Yankees.
Very
please.
good, Lisa. I'm very open. I'm a very social kind of guy, you know? I like to talk to people. And believe it or not, my ears are bigger than my mouth. It's just my haircut. Like, people feel intimidated. So I reassure a lot of times, and I always hear, oh, wow, man, you're not like I thought you would be, man. Yeah. Don't bother so much, because I got used to it long time ago.
But don't you think that a lot of that stuff that you do serves to put distance between you and people? All that yada yada? I mean, all of that, all the lines, all the flip, all
we
the
do
talking.
spin magic. We do make magic tricks. We do make sleight of hand. We do make showbiz. And I love showbiz. Oh, Lord, how I love show business.
You didn't answer my question, though.
I'm answering your question. You do a lot of things, but what's your first love? What are you living for? I don't figure history's going to record my accomplishments, but what'll be on the stone will say is a spirit. You go for the spirit, boom, and then Rachel Ward will fall in love with me.
Was it your idea to call it Van Halen?
Yes.
Why?
Well, couldn't easily call it Roth. It was my idea.
Why couldn't you have called it Roth?
Because it doesn't sound romantic enough. Van Halen, to my ear, in a poetic sense, sounds like something that could be a euphemism, argot, for the wind. The Van Halen winds, like the Santana winds. Or it could be a piano player, a classical piano player, Van Halen, tonight at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, one night only. You know, like that. Or it could be anything, you know, the Flying Dutchman, the pirate ship that supposedly sunk, came back as a ghost ship and, you know, plunders all ships at sea. The Flying Dutchman, the captain, was named Van Halen. It could be anything. It could sum up anything, and therefore you could grow within it. I love to fly, but the discipline that it takes for me to get myself loose so I don't hurt myself when I land, because going up is nothing. Coming down is the whole ball of wax. The things I go through as far as warming up, stretching, watching what you eat, etc., to where you can get maximum altitude and really feel like you're soaring, is such a pain in my behind. I wish I could just take a slug off the bottle and swing into it and get 5 feet off the ground, you know, and smile and wink. But you can't do it. It doesn't work that way. As usual, the answer lies somewhere in between. My thrill for throwing myself into the air and doing something while I'm up there, balanced with how much I hate the homework. But if you spin hard enough and fast enough in that kind of heat and that kind of noise, then you achieve a whole nother consciousness. Now, I don't know if I'm losing brain cells or what, but it's a whole nother world. It's a whole nother feeling. It's difficult to explain, but I get, you know, somebody someday will write it up as therapy, and in Beverly Hills, people will do it. You know, for 2 hours, they'll scream at the top of their lungs, and they'll run in place to wild, violent music with all kinds of their friends cheering them on and piped in applause and everything until they fall out on the floor like I do backstage after the show. I want the world. I want the world now. That's a big demand, but I'm willing to work for it.
What does the world mean? What does that mean, you want the world?
I want to go to the farthest out islands, and I want to see somebody with a smile on their face dancing to our music, coming over some pedestrian tropical disco somewhere without him even knowing who the hell I am. You know, I want to see that. I want to see him walk off with a girl so they can go cohabitate, because that my song was their song. That's what I want, and I'm gonna get it.
And when you get that, then what?
Video! Rock and roll is everything. Rock and roll is your lifestyle. Rock and roll is the way you talk. Rock and roll is the way you live and breathe. What time did you go to bed? Did you go to bed? What did you eat for breakfast? Did you eat breakfast? How fast did you drive? How do you treat your boyfriend? How do you treat your girlfriend? How do you dress? How don't you dress? And on and on and on and on and on. And that's got to come from the heart. It's got to be real for me. And I think that as long as we maintain that with Van Halen and we live by that credo, then that will translate onto the records and into the live shows, and I'll always have a job. You play what you can play. You go for what you know, and that is true rock and roll.
Mercurial. You started using that word in our conversations to describe yourself, and I said that the definition in the dictionary was both changeable and erratic and lively and sprightly. Which is David Lee Roth?
I like the sound of all four. Lively and sprightly, changeable and erratic. I started using the word mercurial because that's a real popular journalistic word to use. They say, the mercurial Princess Di, or the mercurial so-and-so. I mean, to me it meant changing, always surprising, something that you wouldn't expect. You know, if something or somebody is mercurial, it's like the thermometer. Up one day, down the next, who knows where it's going to be, who knows what color it's going to be. And I like that idea, that it's always going to be something changing for you.
Okay, except you don't do that on stage, do you?
Well, the idea behind the Van Halen show on stage is much like a Broadway production, in that all of your punchlines, all of your cue lines, your timing, what have you, is dependable. It's the same from show to show, and that way you start to play a precision kind of a show, something that's dependably, in my book, great. Something that's dependably fun, something that's dependably there. You use the same jokes when you go to the bar. Do you go to the bar, Lise? I have a suspicion that you do. I go to the bar quite a bit, and I end up using the same jokes a lot of times at the bar. It's the same on stage. You use those kind of things so that no matter how you feel, no matter if you got the flu or you just broke up with somebody or the equipment is forsaking you or what have you, you have those punchlines, those jumping points, those cue lines. And then you can ad-lib a little bit. You can make it up as you go, like an Laurence Olivier or somebody. But you always have those punchlines that are dependable. And that's how you play precision rock.
You have said to me that you don't feel like going on most nights.
I never feel like going on.
Why?
And this is a curiosity to me. It remains a major curiosity in my life to this day. The truth is, I never feel like going on. Always a half hour before the show, 45 minutes before the show, what have you. I always feel like complete mess. I never feel good, no matter what I eat during the day, no matter what I don't do during the day, no matter what time I got up or didn't get up. I always feel miserable, and I don't know why that is. So I rationalize it in my head like, oh, this is the calm before the storm. But physically, I never feel like doing it, and that affects your mental. I don't know. To my memory, I've never felt great before going on and doing a show. Perhaps it's nerves, perhaps it's a conglomeration of tension, confusion, what's going to be out there, are they going to like it, are they going to hate it, what have you. But I never feel good before I do a show, and I don't think the rest of the band does either.
How can there be any doubt anymore as to whether or not they're going to like it? I mean, isn't it pretty predictable what goes on out there? You sell out before the tours start. You know pretty much the way your audience is going to respond. How many surprises are left?
The surprises come from the heart, and they're intangibles. They're not so much that somebody has the energy to jump higher or somebody has the energy to do a knee slide as opposed to another night when they feel like, oh, I can't do the knee slide tonight or what have you. But it's an intangible. There's a spirit there. And that's what you look for, to see if that spark is going to come out of nowhere 3 or 4 songs into the set, to see if that little blue spark that everybody looks into and goes, wow, that's what you look for. And who knows where that comes from.
What would be the most disappointing kind of experience that would be out there for you?
The most disappointing experience, I think, would be that the audience didn't see it my way.
How often does that happen?
Rarely, honey.
And yet, you know,
I'll talk you through it, man. I'll talk you into it. I'll talk you over it. I'll talk you beside it. I'll distract you, whatever I have to do.
You can be very self-deprecating about what you do. Sometimes you make fun of yourself more than anybody does. Where does this fit in terms of what you really
Well,
like?
You got to have a sense of humor, I believe. And I think that's sadly lacking in a lot of rock and roll. Is you come on stage with all this storm and thunder and pounce and fury and all these gesticulations and wildness and what have you. And if you look at it with just that one eye, it kind of comes off as a little bit preposterous. Nobody is like that. Come on. I can't think of anybody who really commands total power, total enthusiasm, what have you. Maybe the Pope or somebody, but it's certainly not Dave Roth. And I always look at it with a little bit of a stray eye. I always look at it with a little bit of a sense of humor. You say self-deprecating remarks. I make those all the time because the way I come off on stage, I really feel that. I really feel larger than life. I really feel strong like bull. But does it really exist? So I question. And when it comes interview time, then I'll throw the question up. Hey, what do you think? You think it's for real? I deal in terms that I figure everybody can understand. I understand it. You're going to understand it. Nobody going to feel left out. I spent a lot of my life feeling left out, you know, and I don't like it.
When did you feel left out?
I felt left out through my whole school career.
Why?
Whether it was grade school, junior high, high school, junior college, I was always the odd man out.
Why?
I was always this way. I'm not the way I am because I'm in a rock band. Dave
Don't
has
give me
always
that
been
line.
Dave. Dave
Right.
has
Wait a
always been
second.
Dave. I felt left out because I cut my hair different. I felt left out because I take interest in other things. I want to go build a little toy boat instead of, you know, join with everybody and go down to the beach, you know. All these different things. But that's the traditional rock story. That's your traditional...
Yeah, but you see, that's the point. That is so typical almost that I can't imagine that that's unusual anymore.
Oh, I felt like the only man left on the face of the earth, you know, and like lonely and everybody hates me and this and that. But everybody goes through that. I got to a point where I don't have to settle for that ever again. I can share with people directly across the boards. I can speak their language. Language is very important to me, whether it's slang or whether it's a whole nother language entirely, French or Spanish or what have you. And I don't like feeling left out, and I make it a point not to leave anybody out when I talk.
You made yourself platinum. How is it different than you thought it was going to be?
How is it different? The myriad of details that come with being a platinum act, that come with being a world-class rock and roll outfit, just stack up before your naked, steaming eyes faster than you ever thought they ever would.
Why are you the one that worries about these details? The others don't, do they?
The others in the band worry about it, but they can't put it into words perhaps as eloquently.
Are you sure they can't talk? Or do you think there's been this emphasis on the fact that you're supposed to be doing
Well, no,
this?
Lise, the others will talk to you, as I'm sure they already have, but they'll lie. And that's because of my coaching.
All right, I'll rephrase that. For the past 10 years, hasn't there been this kind of attitude like Dave should do the interviews because he's the better talker? Therefore, not perhaps giving some of the others a chance to develop that talent or show that side.
That's entirely possible. That's entirely possible because I like my place, you know? My little circle on the stage will expand and grow bigger and bigger and bigger if you don't watch out, you know? I like to pretend that this is the consummate rock band. We take care of everything. Everything you see and hear from Van Halen came from Van Halen.
As opposed to what?
As opposed to coming from a fat cat manager in a three-piece suit with a watch chain.
That hasn't happened in 10. But that hasn't happened in 10
that
years.
Has happened
Why do you keep
constantly.
Saying?
That happens constantly.
Wait a minute. I want to get one thing straight. You always say in interviews that I've seen that you have no manager. You do have a manager.
Oh yes, we have a manager.
Okay. Next. This three-piece suit, fat cat manager with a cigar, has not existed, as far as I can see, since, Espresso Bongo in the late 1950s. Who are you talking about?
I'm talking about when the Clash suddenly changed to the same uniforms, and somebody told them, hey,
you're wrong.
Look for these zippers, look for the black, look for this, look for this kind of a haircut.
No, you're
Let's
wrong.
watch for that.
No, you're wrong.
The Sex Pistols were direct victims of that.
Okay, the Sex Pistols did have a manager like that. That's true.
Well, that certainly is the latest illustration
but
of the free new
wrong.
band, isn't it?
Well, but see, the thing is, the Sex Pistols also did have a very major charismatic star who ultimately couldn't be told what to do. And so whatever Malcolm McLaren wanted to do with them didn't work anyway. But
wow, that's a perfect illustration of what I'm talking about.
You're wrong about the Clash. I just think that for you to keep saying that business about the manager in the three-piece suit and the fat cat, it's not on anymore. That hasn't happened in the music business.
It exists constantly.
Name some names.
The last interview that I read in Rolling Stone with Journey was all Herbie Herbert's, their manager, explaining very carefully how they had group therapy sessions so they could become in touch with each other further and henceforth harmonize at a better pitch so that they could become more aware of each other as individuals, and et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. Tomorrow they're going to share wives. I don't know. It's just on and on. That sort of thing exists more than it does not. It's very difficult to escape trying to achieve artistic control over all of your product.
Van Halen now is not really what you would call in fashion. Would you?
Van Halen is decidedly out of fashion. The only one to catch up with us lately is Calvin Klein with the guy Attila standing in it.
That's actually true, you're
standing in his northern New York clothes looking like he's freezing, with the jawline showing, but he's got the long hair. It's like when we go down south, I say the South doesn't need to rise again, never left, and neither did Van Halen or the people that we represent.
People who feel like misfits always, I think, it's like a curse in a way, but it's almost like a blessing because it makes you go forward.
It propels you.
Yeah.
It propels you. The feeling that you're missing something will propel you. And that's always been something that's driven me. I don't want to miss it. Not only do I not want to miss it, but I want to be the one who tells the joke that everybody busts up at.
Okay, you want to be the one that everyone's always going to laugh at the joke, but then you're giving up something in return, aren't you?
Yeah, you're definitely giving up something in return. You deprecate yourself. You cut yourself down a little bit, but that's no major thing to me. Life is not a popularity contest, and I love to see people having a good time. And I always go off when I'm on my own. I go to a beach, and I sit by myself, and I sit on the end of the beach, and when I hear people laughing and have a good time, then I have a good time, and I feel for that,
What do you feel like when people write things about Eddie as a musician and they put you down?
I thrill to it in that Eddie is, to my way of thinking, man, he's the quintessential musician. Eddie, to my way of thinking, he's like a Beethoven. He's like a Bach. He's like a Penderecki. He's like a whoever you want to call it. In that he is consumed with his passion for music. He plays constantly. He seeks only to play. His entire life is based on, quotation marks, to play. Whether it's making a studio or whether it's on another person's record, of which he's been on several, or whether it's to create for Van Halen or in the band or during sound check, tweaking out his little amplification things that only Ed and a dog can hear. To me, he is, man, that's something real special. And when I see somebody else recognize it, I go, right on. You hear about the show goes on sale, boom, show sold out. That's it. And we come and we play, and we sell our records, you know.
Do you feel like you're not respectable?
This is not Larry Holmes, Lise.
That's what it sounds like.
We knock them out every night, and the people enjoy it as much as we do. And every year we got another job coming up, you know? Who cares about the respect? Who cares about these?
You don't care?
No.
Why do you have so much trouble with your record company? Or don't you want to?
Difficulty with the record company is because the record business is in a serious decline now. And whether that's video games or what have you, I prefer to look upon it as a pruning of the trees. We're going to separate the boys from the men. Van Halen has remained men this year. Next year, who knows? Maybe we'll be relegated to boy class. I doubt it.
Why do you travel on bus?
We travel on the bus because it's like an airplane, except you don't have to safely stow your carry-on luggage safely beneath the seat in front of you. You don't have to straighten your seat bags and tray tables all the way forward upon takeoff and extinguish all smoking materials. You don't have to wonder that there's a life jacket safely beneath the seat underneath you in the sudden eventual loss of pressure. And who cares about a small yellow mask containing oxygen that'll pop out of the wouldn't have to safely stow your carry-on luggage safely beneath the seat in front of you. You don't have to straighten your seat bags and tray tables all the way forward upon takeoff and extinguish all smoking materials. You don't have to wonder that there's a life jacket safely beneath the seat underneath you in the sudden eventual loss of pressure. And who cares about a small yellow mask containing oxygen that'll pop out of the ceiling?
In other words, you're frightened of flying.
I hate flying. Flying scares the mess out of me. I hate flying.
Don't you save money, though, traveling by bus?
Money. Yeah, you save a little bit of money, but by the time the guys finish eating microwave burritos and buying up them $75 cassettes for the video, nah, you don't save so much.
Jesus. You really don't? I mean, I thought that was one of the main reasons why you did it.
No, the main reason is nobody likes to fly. It's much more convenient. You climb on the bus. It's like a total airplane. Understand, this is not a Greyhound with multiple seats. This is a video. You got VHS, Betamax, hot and cold, microwave, refrigerator, freezer, bathroom, 3 compartments, disco lighting. You got the whole thing.
Disco lighting. What was it? You said something about Afro Sheen once on the bus that you did. Natalie Cole's band and rented it. What happened with the video with MTV?
What happened with the video with MTV is we attempted to make something that was at least semi-shocking. And we did that without nudity, without overt, ready for this? Grotesquity.
What?
Grotesque stuff. Oh. And, you know, and we did like this and that. And they banned us from it because they got too many cards and letters from people who saw the video and said they're going to renege on their subscriptions and they don't want to, you know, have their kids watch this kind of thing and everything. So they took us off of the air. I thought it was a simply wonderful cinematic effort.
Well, you were telling me that you didn't think video really was important and that you didn't think that it was going to be part of the future of the music business. Do you really mean that?
I think video is important now because it's in its inceptual stages. But I see the same thing happening to video that has happened to the synthesizer. Now, originally, the synthesizer was developed as an instrument that had no identifiable sound of its own. And after all this incestuous use of it throughout rock bands and what have you, you've come to recognize the synthesizer once you hear it on tape. Once you hear it on record, you know, oh, synthesizer. It's because everybody's using waveform squared, everybody's using, you know, analog, everybody's using this and that. Don't make sense. So now what's happening is the synthesizer is in decline. Now we have drum machines, but synthesizer, in fact, is in decline. It's just, you know, they're going to go as far as with it as they can, and I think the same thing is going to happen to video. You start to learn what to expect. A lot of fingers playing keyboards. You see a lot of endless white backgrounds with guys playing guitars, electric guitars with no chords. And it just becomes very predictable, very, oh yeah, all right, oh yeah, like that. And there's not too many artists who can just perform live their music and captivate your interest, I feel, on a video format.
On the other hand, I would imagine that you would be able to appreciate the nature of this kind of a visual medium and somebody whose face is so arresting, considering that you're pretty visual, that you could use this to your advantage.
Well, now, Van Halen is an entirely different story because I have no idea what we can accomplish on video. We tried one cinematic effort in the old John Huston tradition, you know, giant everything, you know.
And this whole thing, what's been the best thing about it? The whole success that you've had with Van Halen and your own particular personal fame.
The best thing that's come out of all of this is that the fringe benefits have far transcended any kind of financial compensation. Finance, as far as I can tell, is like in 1,000 Clowns, the old movie 1,000 Clowns. When the older guy talked to the little kid, and he says, look at that big building, Junior. You see that big building? And the kid says, yeah. He says, you know what they do in that building? He says, no, what? He says, man, they transfer pieces of paper, money, but it's actually paper from the first floor to the fifth floor to the top floor, and when it's at the top floor, they move it to another building. And you never get to see it. You never get to really participate in it. What comes from is the fringe benefits, where you can walk along the dock on any bay, and if people, they don't care about your money. Everybody's got money in the marina, you know, like that. But if they find out you're in rock and roll, they say, hey, come on the boat, have a drink, you know, we'll go sailing for a week. Maybe you never come back. All right. You know, and you just, the fringes. That has been the biggest compensation for me.
What are the fringes for you?
The other fringes are travel and an acceptance, because people feel like they know you a lot of times. And in fact, they do. They know a lot of facets of you if you translate it with integrity into your music and what you say.
And yet you don't really, you hide a lot of what really is about you.
That's okay.
People
Once
really
I'm
have to
on
look-
the boat, then we'll talk about it.
But people really have to make an effort. People really have to make an effort to find it out.
I don't think so. I think I make it so easy to read between the lines of what I say, and a lot of it is couched in a sense of humor, and a lot of it is desperately philosophical, you know, but you can read between the lines, I think, quite easily.
Yeah, but that loneliness and that vulnerability and stuff, you don't portray that on stage, David. People really have to see you and spend time with you in order to know that.
Everybody feels vulnerable. Everybody feels a little bit of loneliness. Why portray that on the stage? We're looking for something that has more of a positivism to it, something that is more uplifting, something that has some, you know? And that's what makes people live. That was what makes people survive.
Okay, what's the worst thing about all of this?
The worst thing about all of this is the time. You lose a lot of time. Things that you could do here or could do there, you can't do because you're on the road, or you're in the studio, or you're on a plane. And I would like to have time to try other things, to get involved in other things. Who knows what it is? Maybe painting, maybe some more writing, maybe learning to sail, maybe learning whatever. You don't have the time for those kind of things. But that's the sacrifice.
You're not complaining.
I'm not complaining.
Okay. I do it. I can't believe it. Hello, hello, hello. Great. Okay, one thing I wanted to ask you that I forgot. You walk out of a hotel to go to a show. I've been with you, and you strut. I mean, you swagger, you wave like you're the royal family or something.
The
You know, it's
show
like,
starts when you leave the room. The show starts the minute you hit the deck. The minute you head out into the hallway and into the elevator, the show starts. That's the beauty of rock and roll. It's everything, all at once, all at one time. Cake and eat it too.
you're very aware of choreography. It's sort of choreographing everything that way. You once said that to me. It's like to the music
It's
that you
not
play in your room.
choreographing, it's orchestrating. And you can change it at will, but you kind of, you know the audience is going to be there. Let's give them a show.
What if they're not? What if you walk out in the lobby and nobody's there?
The audience is always there. Even if it's one person pushing broom, the audience is there. That's showbiz.
How do you feel when you're somewhere and you realize everybody's watching you in a room? You like that?
I feel great. I feel great. It's like you're putting on a show. It's like, zoom, the substantiation of all that went before on the stage.
You don't ever desire to be somewhere and just be anonymous. I mean,
sure.
aside from pushing your hair back and tying the head
Oh,
and the hat and
sure,
all
but
that.
then you travel 8 hours on an airplane and you go to some place where they have no idea who Van Halen is.
When you go to Tahiti, is that what it's like?
Mm-hmm.
What do you do there?
Bust coconuts and buy fish off the street,
And you just lie on the beach?
and that's it.
You have friends there?
Mhm.
And what language do they speak?
French.
You speak French?
Basta.
What? That's
No.
not French. You can't
No.
fool me. Okay.